Well, if you ever get a chance to drive a V16 Cadillac, please take it, or just ride in it if you can't drive it, because it really is a fascinating experience. It's amazing how advanced it is over other cars of the period. Smoother, quieter.
Smooth as can be.
Boy, this does drive nice.
It's a road trip car. Well, not really, but it was at a certain point.
It'd actually be cheaper to fly than...
Oh yeah, if you paid for the fuel too.
Yeah. Well, in that episode of Jay Leno's Garage, once again being visited by automotive royalty. This is one of the gems from the Nethercutt Museum, which is just up the street from this. It's the place you got to visit when you come to California. This is a 1932 Cadillac V-16 452A. There's some interesting facts about this car. We'll go over them in just a minute. This is a very impressive automobile. This was built in total secrecy. In fact, I think Fisher was the engineer, Lawrence Fisher, I think that was his name. They also developed a V12, and they told everybody it was a V12 because that was going to compete with Packard and whatnot. And sort of secretly off to the side, they were doing the 16. So when they surprised the public with this, it was pretty amazing. We'll open the hood in just a minute, and we'll show you what a styled engine looks like. This is one of the first. LaSalle, I think, was one of the first two, but so was this. Engine compartment to be styled. By that I mean, you know, chrome runners carrying the wires and just making it look symmetrical. I mean, it's really a beautiful engine bay when you see it. It is overhead valves, extremely quiet. It's not so much about speed as about performance, in the sense that effortless performance. When you get in this car, the only sensation I can compare it to would be getting in a modern electric, like a Tesla or something, after having driven gas cars. Just the sense of torque pushing you along. That's what's so impressive. These were not nearly as fast or as powerful as the Duesenberg, but the Duesenberg was more for the sort of raucous Hollywood set, you know, 260 horsepower, which was unbelievable at the time, 265 actually. This was 175, 180 horsepower. This was for the banker, you know, the prestigious Wall Street guy, you know, that type of thing. This is the car that really put Cadillac on the map. Cadillac, a lot of people think Henry Ford invented the V8, you know. Cadillac had, I think, the first production V8, Cadillac and Oldsmobile, back in '15. And it's just a fantastic motor. I've got a 1918 Cadillac, a 1925. And the engine's got dual water pumps, and I mean, there's a lot of really advanced engineering. This is when Cadillac really was the standard of the world. You know what's interesting? I always say my favorite automotive year, I have two, 1932 and 1966. I like 1932 because that was the year, okay, cars are here to stay. You know, this is the way we're going to move for the next 100 years or so. So they came out with fantastic automobiles like this V16. In 1932, in the depths of the Depression, people are broke, there's bread lines, but Busby Berkeley is making musicals, and you're just selling the dream, you know, and this was sort of a dream car. I guess this would be the equivalent today of a Bugatti Chiron or even a Koenigsegg. I mean, 16 cylinders. A Model T had 4 cylinders. This is essentially 2 Buick straight 8s overhead valves put together. I mean, this had all the bells and whistles that they could come up with back in the day. They later went back to a flathead engine, but this one was just to show the depths of engineering that General Motors was able to do at the time. Let's bring in Cameron Richards. He's our Nethercutt guy. Cameron, come on in. Come on in. He's the vice president of Nethercutt over there with your museum.
How you doing, Jay?
Good, really good. You know, he's brought us the Hispano Suiza and all the other great cars. And they have the cars nobody else has, because is it your great-grandfather?
Yep,
yeah.
JB Nethercutt was my great-grandfather.
JB, and I knew JB. He started collecting cars when it seemed stupid. Why, like my dad would say, why would you pay more for an old car? You get a new car for that. Why would you buy an old? Because people saw no logic in it. He bought a lot of these things in the 50s, 60s, even early 70s, when they were still relatively inexpensive. Now, this is interesting because in 1930, the V16, at least the finished car, wasn't ready yet, but they wanted to debut it for the public in 1930. So this body is Cadillac 28, 29,
Right, yeah, it's a 28 or a 29 body, but put on a 1930 chassis.
Right.
Funny story, a guy named Gilbert Meyer, he had a little bit of a pull with GM back in the day, and he heard about this V16 that was coming out, and he wanted it right away, and well, GM listened to him. I don't know if you can get away with something like that these days, but yeah, it's a 28 to 29 body with a V16 engine.
Plus, you also have to remember, back in the day, now you think of it as a 31 or 32. Like packages have a Series 1, Series. Whenever the next car was ready, it just came out. And we're almost back to those days again. You know, when I was a kid, oh, September 15th, they'd cover the, you know, the dealership with blankets or sheets so you couldn't see in to see the new cars until they unveiled it. You got a donut and a hot dog, you know, just all kinds of stuff. And it was sort of the same way then. So the fact that this is 100% Cadillac and left the factory with this body, it's just, well, you know the equivalent would be? When the first Mustangs came out in 64 and a half, it was all Falcon in the interior.
Right.
The door handles, all the thing, it was all Falcon pieces because they didn't know where this Mustang thing was going to, and then gradually got off on its own.
Yeah.
So this was all Cadillac, except that this normally would have had the V8 body. Now it had the V16, but it was a brand new body put on a brand new, so it's not like they rebodied it and took off the old 1930.
Right, yeah.
This is what it left the factory with, so it makes it 100% sort of a GM prototype, doesn't it?
Yeah, they weren't exactly ready to put the dual Cal Phaeton body that you see here on a V16. This is pretty much the only example of it from 1930.
Right, and I don't know what you're driving now. If you think you get bad gas mileage,
yeah,
drive this is I mean, it's literally a fire hose.
Yeah, it's gallon by the mile with this one.
Yeah, it's probably 3 to 6, something like that.
It's generous.
Yeah, it's generous. Generous. Yeah, that sounds like generous mileage. It's like when you buy a piece of crap at the auction, they go, needs mild recommissioning. Yeah, recommissioning.
Yeah, everything about this car just was pizzazz.
Well, let's open the hood and show people what we're talking about.
Let's do it.
The other thing that this car has, which was fairly new, was chrome.
Yeah, and a whole lot of it.
Yeah, because nickel was the prevailing metal of the day. Okay, look at this engine compartment, just beautiful.
Yeah, the legendary Cadillac 452 cubic inch V16.
Right.
A lot of low end torque.
Yeah, it's funny that they went from an overhead valve back to a flathead. But the flathead seemed to work better because you get a lower hood, you know, and all that kind of thing. But I always thought this was the engineering marvel. And it came out in the middle of the Depression, so there weren't a lot of people that could afford it.
Right, yeah.
And those that did were often chastised for, you know.
Yeah, this car was $6,500 brand new back in 1930.
Now, $6,500 doesn't sound like much until you realize the Model T was $240.
Yeah, I don't know how much a house was back then, but maybe half or less.
I know in England, houses at the time were $1,200.
Wow.
You know, like one of those row houses kind of thing. You know, so I mean, so it was a lot of money.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty crazy. I remember when I was a kid, back in '64, my dad looked at a Cadillac, and they wanted $4,500. My dad offered them $4,450, and they said no.
You're kidding.
No, because that was the salesman's commission.
Oh, okay,
It
yeah.
wouldn't come down like $25 even. You know,
that's
sometimes
crazy.
I'm not paying 45%.
Different times.
Okay, and you can fill oil from both sides. I mean, look at how many wires are on that distributor. Pretty amazing. Yeah, this is just such a work of art and just beautifully detailed. Notice how all the wires, everything is covered underneath the cover there. It's just meant to look like a sculpture, really. You know, nothing flopping about or anything like that.
You know, as old as they are and as big as they are, they're actually pretty easy to work on and maintain.
Right. Yeah.
Last time this car was actually out on the road was 10 years ago, and it's just been on display in the museum since. And it was pickled, what we call it, you know, winterized, and put some oil in it and some fluids, new battery, thing lit right up like July.
That's the great thing about mechanical stuff. Mechanical stuff breaks. Electronic stuff degrades.
Mm-hmm.
So I can look at something and go, oh, see the crack? Or, you know, the oil pump isn't working because the spring has gone or the arm is broken or something. With electric, I can look at it all. It looks brand new. I can't open a relay and see what's in it.
Right.
You know, you just have to replace it with another part. That's what's kind of nice about this stuff. And it's dual carburetors, one on each side.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. And this is your vacuum pump for the fuel. Engine stays nice and clean. I like how these all kind of go the same direction. That one's a little off. We'll fix that later. And of course, these thumb screws here, you undo those. You lift that plate up and your wires and your spark plugs are underneath here. Just how neat and tidy everything is. You know, it got sloppier as cars got more complex. They just left everything. Now you just cover with a sheet of plastic. But back then you put a nice metal piece on here with a couple of chrome knobs holding it down. And this is interesting. I've never seen this that early, the chrome. But
yeah, one of the first cars.
Left the factories with that, huh? Because as I said, nickel was the prevailing finish back in the day. And I like the nickel because it's softer in the brass too. But chrome really pops, you know. So when you saw something like this in the middle of the Depression, it's dark, you know, everybody's selling apples on the street. And this thing comes down, it's yellow and black. I mean, pretty impressive. And this searchlight is hilarious. I mean, your iPhone will give you more light than this.
Yeah.
Really. But you know, it's just, yeah.
You can move it like the old cops, though.
And what does this weigh, I wonder, this thing?
The car itself?
Yeah, any idea?
Well over 7,000 pounds.
It is 7,000 pounds, yeah.
Yeah, she's a tank. It's actually pretty nimble, if that word can even be associated with this car, but it moves really well down the road, quiet as can be. Honestly, it'd be a great car to learn how to drive a manual on. Yeah. It's just so smooth. The clutch is so easy. Brakes are great. It's a wonderful driver.
And you can use it, it'll pull away in any gear.
Oh yeah, it'll pull away in third easy.
And it's a 3-speed.
Yep, yeah, standard 3-speed of the era.
Again, that was something, because a lot of cars were 4-speed. People would brag, our car only needs 3-speed.
Yeah.
So you save, because people didn't like the shift. It was just another chore. It's not like, we always think of the 4-speed as being sporty. But even though in the Mustang and the Firebird, those all came out as 3-speeds, and you paid extra for the sporty 4-speed, you know. All Duesenbergs left the factory with 4 speeds, but the transmissions couldn't take the torque. They all broke. So they recalled them all and put in a 3-speed truck transmission, which all the Duesenbergs still have. I don't think any of those original 4 speeds even exist. But you don't miss it because there's so much torque. You know, that's the thing with these old engines. I've got that Packard Caribbean. That has a 2-speed automatic. But it's a 374 with 2 4-barrels, so it'll pull away in high.
Yeah, it'll take off.
Yeah, so you got plenty of torque. Yeah, just a beautiful car. And these are the original colors?
It was repainted, not like original from back then.
So it
but
wasn't yellow and black back in the day?
Not that I know of, no. Okay. My great-grandfather painted this car years and years ago, but when he bought it, actually it was purchased on New Year's Day in 1985, and he repainted, like, had it refinished yellow and black. It already was, and we call her Bumblebee.
Right.
And it was always one of my favorite cars as a kid.
Now this looks LeBaron, this scoop here, but it's not. Is this Fleetwood?
Fisher coachwork.
Fisher, yeah, okay. Fleetwood.
Yep, and it's got these bead moldings so the hood and the body can connect with the two-tone paint and everything.
I love the way this, you have to open it.
Yeah, you want to pop that up?
Yeah, let's show how this works.
Usually I just stand on it because...
You're getting in is a big deal. You do this, and you lift that up, and then you enter through here, which is actually better than some of them. Let's see how, there we go. Oh, there you are, you get up, and then you bring this down, and you got your own windshield.
Yeah.
And you got your own side windows. Oh, yeah.
In case there's bugs or birds.
Yeah, I mean, this is the way to travel.
I still think it's better than what we got today.
Yeah, pretty amazing, pretty amazing. And there's actually quite a bit of legroom back here, because your feet go into here, and then you have a storage compartment right down here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can hide your moonshine bottles and pistols for back in the day. This was definitely a fan favorite for bootleggers and gangsters. Well,
bootleggers and gangsters, this was because it was, like, it's like with rappers with the bling cars and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, basically. But I'm surprised at how, because I've been in some other cars that have dual, and you're really just crunched up, whereas this, it's actually a full-size back seat, and it's pretty easy to get out of. Just let it click?
Yeah, sometimes it'll do it, then yeah, it's easier just to...
Yeah. Oh, wait, hang on, let me shut this.
Oh, yeah, that's probably a good idea.
Shut that first.
There we go.
And the other side looks actually like a mirror of this side. It's
Right, yeah.
Same thing, but yeah, just such an amazing automobile. I mean, look at the thickness of these wire wheels. Yeah.
Yeah, nothing on this car says the word efficient at all.
But you know, it's interesting. A lot of these were built before we knew the tensile strength of metal, so you just got as much metal to make it as strong as you possibly could. And this is what my dad used to call road-hugging weight. And no power steering, of course, no power.
Absolutely not.
Do you have a power brake? Is there a vacuum on the brake?
The brakes are really good, yeah. They actually, it's surprising how well this car can stop.
Yeah, it's four-wheel brakes, which was not new. Most cars were starting to get that by this time. They were hydraulic. Henry Ford in 1930 was still using mechanical brakes.
Mm-hmm.
He used to say, the strength of steel from pedal to wheel, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
And it sort of made sense. I mean, why would you trust a little tube with some liquid in it to stop your car when you have a nice metal rod there? You know exactly what's going on, you know, so very cool. Well, I think we're about ready to take this thing for a ride. What do you think? I mean, that's really what makes it really terrific, is the driving. I mean, it's impressive to look at, but you could get the smaller engine car with this body on it, you wouldn't know the difference, you know.
Right, right.
It's the V16 which really makes it just sort of glide away. You know, it's that kind of torque you used to call the hand of God. It's like just pushing the car. You just barely touch the gas and it just pulls away. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's very impressive,
Yeah.
especially for the era.
I mean, Marmon came out with a 16 also, and it was about 6-8 weeks ahead of this. But Marmon's was actually 200 horsepower, a bit more horsepower. It was a great motor as well, all aluminum. The trouble is, it was a last-ditch effort. The company was out of money. They were broke. They didn't have the budget, you know. Cadillac was General Motors at that point.
Yeah.
It was, you know, the most powerful corporation in America, all that kind of stuff, you know. So very cool. Let me show you how smooth this engine is. Cameron, fire it up. I mean, look how, can you even tell, if you didn't see the fan, you wouldn't know this is running. I mean, there's no vibration here at all. I mean, just a perfectly balanced engine. It's an amazing feat. I mean, don't forget, you're only 30 years on from horse and wagon. I mean, figure 1910 was when cars started to become popular more than just curiosities. And then 20 years later, you got something like this. But I'm just amazed at how, look, you don't see any vibration in my hand at all. And you wouldn't even know this is running if you didn't see the fan going around. Pretty amazing. I think it's time to take it for a ride.
It's got a great horn, too.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the torque is effortless. I don't even have my foot on the gas. I'm just letting the clutch out.
Yeah, it's so easy.
Pull away. So easy to drive.
As smooth as can be.
It really is. Just unbelievable. Boy, this does drive nice.
It's a road trip car. Well, not really, but it was at a certain point.
It'd actually be cheaper to fly than...
Oh, yeah, if you paid for the fuel, too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there were quite a few times when Cadillac shocked the world. When they won the Doers Trophy, that's the thing where they had a contest. They would take 3 cars, take them all apart, throw all the pieces in a box, put the cars back together, see if they still ran. And that's what Cadillac did, because it was precision engineering. Then, of course, in 1932, you had this. You had the V-16. And the other time Cadillac, I think, shocked the world was 1949, when it had what was considered truly the best car in the world. I mean, in 1949, you had an overhead valve V8, you had power windows, you had air conditioning, You had, you know, I think you had a power brake. You know, it was amazing. Whereas Rolls-Royce was still a manual transmission, a 6-cylinder engine. You know, I mean, the Cadillac really was the standard.
Yeah, there's a reason why everyone always says it's the Cadillac of so-and-so. They're always ahead of their time.
My dad used to say Cadillac was a Rolls-Royce automobile. Pop, it can't be the Rolls-Royce. No, it was. I go, no, but Dad, Rolls-Royce is an automobile. It can't be the, you know. Let's have this ridiculous argument. You know, the thing with these was, it wasn't how powerful they were, although they were. Duesenberg was more powerful. It was how effortless it was.
Right, it just pulls right away.
Right.
And the suspension just floats so nicely.
Yeah, really. Now, if you're watching this, obviously, on a video screen, and you hear some pops, it's because there's no shielding on the wires. You know, before radios were in cars, they didn't shield the wires because static didn't matter. But once you got a radio in a car, they had to shield them. And what you're hearing now is, if you hear a little bit of inconsistency in the mics, it's because the electricity from the distributor is affecting the audio here. I'm stunned at how nice it is to drive. It's really amazing.
Yeah, I drive a number of new vehicles on the 405 all the time. I think this would actually be better.
Oh yeah, it's great.
And I love the steering wheel, how you can just kind of rest your whole forearms on it. It's very comfortable.
And the big wheel makes it easy to turn.
Yeah.
And I believe when they were developing this motor, they really started, and this might be a rumor, so maybe somebody in the comment section will mention it. It was 2 Buick straight 8s.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, to make the 16.
I can see that.
Because Buick had the overhead valve.
I couldn't think of a more perfect Sunday driver than this thing.
And you know, it's fascinating because Harley Earl and a couple of the other designers, they just went all over Europe. What a con job to tell the boss, I gotta go to Europe to look at cars. and to pick designs, you know, for this new 16 and what coach building ideas and that type of thing. You know, it's funny, all the Europeans wanted somebody else to do their coach work. And we did that to a certain extent here, but Cadillac was smart. They built factory cars because Americans like to walk. I want that one. And boom.
Right.
You get it next week. You know, I remember I worked with Mercedes-Benz on introducing the Maybach back in the early 2000s. And the idea was they're going to set up centers where people would go in and you'd sit with a salesman and sort of design the car, the finish you wanted and the paint.
That's really cool. Yeah, that's unheard of today.
The trouble was, it was 12-week wait. People go, how long? No, can I just get that one on the floor? You know, oh, really? Yeah, I mean, you know, Americans don't like to wait for anything, you know?
Yeah, well, especially in today's, everything is instant satisfaction these days, so yeah, a little tricky to wait that long now.
You know, this was the golden age for convertibles because the speed limit was about 45 miles an hour. And so, consequently, cruising at 30 or 35, especially in something like this, it's quiet, it doesn't shake or rattle, making noise. So they had a nice breeze blowing through. You know, it's very relaxing. You know, by the time the 70s, 80s, and 90s came along, highway speeds got up to 75, 80 miles an hour, and suddenly getting blown all over the place. Then back in the early 70s, they just stopped convertibles. GM made the last one in 76, the Cadillac. But then the demand just got too strong and they brought it back again.
Yeah.
And the seats are quite comfortable.
Very comfy, yeah. This is one of the definite, this car never missed a picnic, ever.
Yeah.
It was always out. It was easy, one of the easiest ones to drive. It's for, you know, especially compared to how big it is, it's just so easy. It floats.
Well, we should mention that the Nethercutt, one great thing they do, that squeaking you're hearing is not my brakes, it's the truck. It's the Cadillac. Nethercutt's, all the employees grab a car from the museum and they go on a picnic. It's maybe, what, 15, 20 miles away?
Yeah, we'd shoot right up to 5, and unfortunately we haven't done that in a number of years because of how insurance goes these days. And yeah, but we would love to bring it back slowly. Like maybe start with 5 cars, maybe even 3, just to see if we could still pull it off.
That would be great fun.
You'll be the first one invited.
Let me know. Having a car like this back east was a nightmare, because you had snow and humidity, and in the wintertime, trying to crank over 16 cylinders with, you know, freezing oil.
Yeah.
But being in California, a car like this, if you bought it in 1930, it'd last you 25, 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, she spent most of her early life in New Jersey, New York area. I'm not exactly sure when it came over to Southern California, but she just belongs here.
Yeah. I mean, I really feel like I'm in a Tesla. I can't hear the engine at all.
Yeah. In some of these really bigger cars, it's really hard to see over the hood. This one, I mean, you could see the edges of the headlights, so you could get right up to a parking spot if you need to.
Right, right. I wouldn't try parallel parking this thing.
No, I wouldn't either.
I might get a little dicey.
Yeah.
But this is a car you pilot.
Right.
But this is about as close to new as you're going to find a car from the 30s. It was probably a low mileage car to begin with, and that was restored properly. I mean, a lot of these old cars, the steering box, you have to, you know, you're going straight, you've got to kind of wrench the wheel because it kind of sticks in. Whereas this is very smooth, very nice.
I love the yellow and black. Like I said, her nicknames for the longest time, ever since we've had it, was always Bumblebee.
Right, right.
And it's so iconic. And, you know, my era, play a lot of video games growing up, and some of the period video games were like from the 30s. There's always cars that, not exactly like it, but they really mimic the body lines of these old Cadillacs.
And it's quite hot today. It's 85, probably 90 degrees.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to go stop and go traffic. I think we'd start getting some misuse, but...
Have you guys got one of the flathead 16s?
Of Cadillac?
Yeah.
More than likely. At our peak, we had 25 Cadillacs.
Yeah.
JB loved the old luxury cars. A lot of Packard, Cadillac, and Lincolns.
Yeah. Well, he was still alive when you were a young man, right?
Yeah, I remember him. I remember going on picnics as a kid. He passed away in 2004, along with my great-grandmother, Dorothy.
Okay.
Yeah, I remember hanging out with him, just being around the cars. So
about 7, 8 at that time?
Yeah, that was, let's see, in 04, I'd be about 6.
Yeah. The thing that really impressive, though, is the steering box. I just have so many old cars that doing like this all the time because they just get tight spots in the gear, you know. Whereas this is very nice. I mean, no one would ever mistake for power steering, but considering how much it weighs, it's not, you know, abusive to you. I mean, it's really nice.
Right, yeah.
Well, Cameron, thanks again for bringing us one of the treasures of the Nethercutt.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me again, Jay.
Oh, yeah, it's fun to see this stuff out on the road.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they look great in a museum, but when you see them compared to modern cars and size-wise and just moving down the street, it brings a whole different dynamic to it.
Absolutely.
So cool. Well, if you ever get a chance to drive a V16 Cadillac, please take it, or just ride in it if you can't drive it, because it really is a fascinating experience. It's amazing how advanced it is over other cars of the period. Smoother, quieter, powerful, really, really fun to drive. See you guys next week.
Mm-hmm.